What high school conspiracy turned out to be true at your school? There was a girl freshman year who went missing. She ended up being found dead in the river. There were rumors that she was seen on a bridge with her boyfriend the day she went missing. Nothing was ever found and they assumed it was suicide and accident. Fast forward 25 years and the boyfriend murdered his best friend of several decades, set a fire to cover it up, and went on the run. Couple days later he killed a woman at a rest stop in the bathroom to steal her car. They reopened the case about the high school girlfriend. That rumor was correct all along. He will be in prison the rest of his life. That one of the cheerleaders was dating one of the teachers, in his 40s. A year after graduation, they got married and had a baby. Still together 11 years later. Sounds like what happened in the Portland metro area at the school I went to back in 2010ish time. For years before I got to my high school there was a rumor that the admin assistant, guy you went to when you got in trouble, was doing drugs, selling drugs, and confiscating from students without turning over to the police. Well, about 5 years or so after I graduated he got busted a couple towns away for possession of C with intent to distribute. This reminded me of that post about the mother selling drugs to her kid on the streets disguised as a drug dealer then going home confiscating her son's drugs. I attended a newly opened high school that apparently used to be a school for troubled kids. Someone told me there were padded rooms somewhere in the school so I skipped lunch with a friend one day to walk the halls and find them. They did exist, but by next year they were renovated into offices and storage rooms. I thought that was pretty interesting and seriously wondered what went on there before it was turned into a normal high school. My history teacher tennis coach made moonshine and hosted dong fights in his barn. I ended up becoming friends with his son and it was all true. A very different type of dong than the other type in this thread. Hey, dong fighting is fricked up but at least it's not children. My old math teacher was a WWF wrestler. I recognized him from my childhood days channel surfing and couldn't find anything about him on Google, but I was so sure it was him I just asked. I was right, LMAO. He was supposed to pinch me if he was running out of air. That my high school history teacher was putting whiskey in the 2-liter bottle of Pepsi he carried around every day. He was caught trying to buy liquor for some senior girls and it resulted in a car chase we all watched. The police had to pull out the spike strips to catch him. What a disgrace. My teacher just drank out of a paper bag in class whilst harmlessly mumbling inane life stories at us until he was presumably forced to retire. 2 of the teachers hooking up on a Europe class trip. Gone for a week. Came back and the rumors started. 2 weeks later a rumor started he got divorced. Last week of school they were spotted at a restaurant together. Looked him up a couple years after graduating. They're married. Happy ending sort of. That there were tunnels under the school that led to a hidden pool. Confirmed by my father who was a maintenance man for the school district. The tunnels were just utility tunnels. The pool is below the gym floor and was abandoned due to financial reasons. Those types of pools were popular for a few decades but became incredibly expensive to maintain, not to mention safety issues. One of them is featured prominently in It's a Wonderful Life. That the married drama teacher was bonking the substantially younger art teacher. He swore blind that not only was it not true, anyone believing it was should report it to the head because it was so unprofessional. Then a few years later they had a baby. That our IT teacher slept with his students. He was attractive, young, friendly etc. Then suddenly a rumor went around the school that he was sleeping with a 6th former, aged 17/18. He was suspended for a while but then decided to leave after he was cleared of wrongdoing. He got a new job at my cousin's high school across town. He did it again there, got caught with another 17-year-old and was fired shortly after. That our high school had an extensive network of underground tunnels and shelters left over from World War II. Sure enough, not long after I graduated, they were renovating one of the weight rooms that was either at basement level or partially underground. And they found an entire walled off room stocked with supplies from the early Cold War era that no one had remembered. So maybe the supposed tunnel system under the football field was a bit of a stretch, but there definitely were hidden shelter stockroom areas that had been forgotten about. But everyone knows you need an underground tunnel for the opposing team to flee to the Holiday Inn. Philly fans love hammering people. Due to budget cuts or something, all of our metal and woodwork shop machines were to be taken away and replaced with worse versions. The shop teachers and drama teachers that were in the building at the time didn't like this idea, so they hid all the machines in a fourth wall somewhere in the building. The people came to pick them up and they told them that people had already come to pick them up and that they were late. They did some looking around and couldn't find the machines and gave up. A few years and one principal later they brought the machines back out from behind the walls. And that's how the smallest high school of our district with only around 450 students became the best school in the district to learn metal and woodwork. The cask of a Montessori. There were rumors about a music teacher and a student, but they were both pretty dramatic people and did very little to dismiss the talk, so half the school wanted to believe it for the salacious thrill and half just waved it off as attention seeking and crap talking. Teacher got canned without explanation. Most of us just figured it was budget related. A math teacher filled in on his music theater roles. Years later I randomly caught up with the student and she said the rumors were true. She freaked out and tried to end things to shake off the reputation. And eventually the teacher showed up trashed and naked on her family's front lawn, in the rain, yelling out for her, like a really fricked up version of John Cusack from Say Anything but with less boombox and more drenched twang. Rumor, 9th grade. Kid had a hit list and was going to stab people. Rumor spread like wildfire and the school resource officer was alerted. Next day the bus the kid rode was singled out and isolated at the bus drop-off zone. The school resource officer, a local police officer, assistant principal, and the kid's grade counselor all boarded the bus. SRO searched the bag and found a kitchen knife. Kid was taken off the bus and arrested. I have no idea what happened after that. We had a student teacher, so a reasonably attractive guy who was about 22 or 23. The rumor was that he was dating a girl in our class, a senior who was nearly 18. It turned out the rumor was wrong. He was dating her younger sister who was in 8th grade. That's a twist. English teacher who was close with students, not in a pervy way, but more like he was a fellow student instead of an authority figure, was hosting weekend poker parties with his closest students where he would serve booze and weed. One weekend, someone prank called the cops claiming one of these parties was happening. They went to his place and there was one happening as described, but with pee on every TV in the house. Teacher was immediately fired, had his license revoked and disappeared for a couple of years. Students tried protesting the firing because, well, he was the cool guy who gave them weed and booze. According to social media stalking, he's back teaching English at a high school a few hours south of my town now. Yeah, this totally qualifies as in a pervy way. There is no non-pervy way for an adult to watch pee with children. Automotive mechanics program in high school. The teacher was suspected to be doing drugs. In class often it looked like signs of withdrawal would take over and entirely consume him. It turns out he was doing drugs because when he was let go we found needles and spoons under the seat of a school vehicle we had been working on. I hope he's doing well. It was sad to see him deteriorate in a short amount of time. One of the history teachers cheating on his wife with one of the English teachers. They were going to get a divorce anyways and the second they were divorced they started dating. Science teacher cheating on his wife that has brain cancer with the art teacher. They got caught in the art rooms and were canned. Fun fact, their replacement teachers are now happily married after they met there. Must be a normal thing in high schools. Conspiracy. Rumor was that the chemistry teacher was a pedophile. He was an older, overweight guy with a physical disability. I thought it was just people being judgmental buttholes, and even defended him, until I looked it up. He was caught in a To Catch a Predator style sting at his last school trying to meet up with minors. I have no idea how or why the school hired him. I even sent a message to the superintendent, but never received a reply. What the heck? That's a crappy super. One of the regular subs we had was a drug addict, which isn't too surprising in the area I'll live in, plus he was in his 70s. He let it slip to multiple classes that he enjoyed smoking weed and doing crack. I mean weed sure, but crack. We had a teacher in his 30s who was rumored to ask pretty graduating seniors to hang out in the last week of school, so technically he wasn't sleeping with students. Welp, he asked the wrong girl and she told everyone. There was a chemistry teacher at my high school who was blinking the pretty senior girls, in some cases literally only hours after they received their diploma. That our principal was a murderer. Apparently, he had been acquitted in a different state of killing his wife, which was sealed. Years later, DNA convicted him. Whoa, that's dark. There was this weird closet built into the middle of the hallway. Yep, the middle. So you had to walk around a giant block of a closet, but the door was always locked. Every morning before the bell rang, we'd meet up by the closet block because it was close to our lockers. The rumor was that it was full of mold because our school was underfunded and gross, but I figured it was just janitorial supplies. I had never seen a janitor go in there, but why would they leave a closet full of mold? Plus, there was already a room that was full of mold. The old boiler room, which was underground and hadn't been used in decades. Then one day, the door was unlocked. Mold, so much mold. Multiple stacks of German textbooks were rotting inside this closet. The pages were wavy and stuck together, and the whole thing was covered in black spots with a white dust on top. The closer you got to the bottom of the stack, the more uniform the books became. They had literally melted together and dried, Lord knows how many times. I simply closed the door and said, well guys, I guess this is why we only have Spanish as our foreign language. TLDR, weird closet full of mold that was dealt with by being locked all the time. What if we kissed in the mold closet and developed cis? Science teacher was lying about being a soldier, stolen valor. Came back from Afghanistan but was actually in Colorado with his GF. He flipped out when someone I know asked him to name a friend who was Kia. 3 or 4 years later it was revealed that he had been lying about his service record and job experience. Lead in the water. Our high school tap water was dark brown and we weren't allowed to bring our own water bottles or get filtered water from the cafeteria without paying $3. We sent hundreds of emails asking the school board to look into it, but they said it was fine. In my senior year, a student did the science fair project on the illegal amount of lead in the tap water, forcing the school to investigate and fix all the taps. Living in a country with very good tap water, it always baffles me when I hear about crap like this, especially the $3 filtered water thing. One of the CMC teachers was faking his doctorate, never went to college at all. If I recall correctly, we weren't allowed to talk about it because he kept working there for the rest of the school year. He'd go absolutely apeshit on students who called him Mr. X over Dr. X though. It was ridiculous. That the reason a longtime sub was let go because she crapped herself during a class when she lost her crap. Both ways. Conspiracy only lasted until that summer. It was true. Word took forever to get out because 70% of the class didn't show up to begin with. I must say I was impressed with those involved staying tight-lipped some 7 months. That our English teacher had a pee addiction and cheated on his wife. Or that our dance team coach was having an affair with our basketball coach while being married to the baseball coach. All turned out to be true. Coachception. Not a conspiracy, but there was once an absolutely massive turd in the girls' bathroom at my high school. It started a hysteria and pretty soon there was a line of people going in and out of the bathroom to get a glimpse of the thing. To this day, I still wonder who made that giant turd. I instantly thought of the Mad Pooper from Bob's Burgers. When I was in 9th grade, my friend told me there were 2 teachers with funny names. One was Mr. Neck, which I knew. The other was Mr. Head and his first name was Richard. I told her to shut up. It's probably a stupid rumor. Like the rumor there's a pool on the 3rd floor. No parent would be cruel enough to name their kid that. The next year, Mr. Richard Head was my biology teacher. He was a nice guy. I absolutely adored him. His wife worked in the office. She was great too. I ended up working with his stepdaughter a few summers later. She told me he was Richard Head III. With a name like Donghead, I guess you've got to do everything in your power to be nice, otherwise you're fulfilling some kind of fricked up prophecy. That the driver's ed teacher, who was also an assistant football coach, was sleeping with female students. He was engaged and his fiancée lived in another city. She was gorgeous. I think former Miss Teen State. Can't remember the state. Well, it ended up being true. He got suspended and a short time later, can't remember, but I think 3 days, They found him dead in his garage. The rumor was sleeping pills, alcohol, and starting his car in a closed garage. Very sad. Our cheerleading coach health teacher was embezzling funds from the cheerleading team. The wild part was that when this was found out, she wasn't even fired. They just took her off the cheerleading team and let her keep being a teacher. That her principal was spending money on her private lunches while we froze because the heating was out for months in -20°C winter. I don't know who blew the whistle, but she was arrested soon, and we got our goddamn heating fixed. Substitute teacher in junior high, who was married to the full-time 8th-9th grade biology teacher, who was smoking hot, looked like Christina Applegate in mid-20s, always wore tight dresses suits that exposed most of her legs with high heels, was rumored to be in P. Well, another kid at school found some older pics of her online. It was something like soxermomsgonual.com, and turned out to really be her. It somehow was even reported in the news. She was fired. The husband kept working there and I think she just leaned on her side business, wedding planner. But man, every boy in whatever class she was in just froze up with a tight butthole. She was incredibly beautiful at the same time as intimidating with her stern stares. Fricked up that they fired her. Everyone was angry that the junior high drama teacher was fired, till it came out that he was molesting 7th and 8th grade kids. I don't believe this to be true at all, but I once went to a school with a particular water fountain nobody would drink from. Why? Because apparently someone peed on it. About a decade after graduation, I returned to the school to work as an educator. I stopped to drink from the fountain because it was the only one that was free, but one of my students stopped me. Don't drink from that fountain, miss. Someone pee on it. Pretty sure after 10+ years, it's been cleaned at least once. That a high school substitute teacher was showing her self-made pee to students on her cell. The rumors spread rather quickly, but no one believed them because we all thought no one could be that stupid. Our minds changed instantly when we saw police cars and news crews showing up filming her being escorted off the premises in cuffs. We were told by our school that we were having a merger with our rival school in an attempt to give the students a better chance, which caused a lot of issues transferring credits wise and also caused a lot of teachers to get laid off. But in actuality the superintendent got a deal to sell the school's land for a huge sum of money, only for the deal to fall through, and now the old school is currently abandoned and will probably get bought for probably not even a fraction of the original price, all cause they got greedy. 4 students were caught doing C on the boat after prom. 2 were rich and well connected and walked at graduation. 2 were not well connected and were expelled just before graduation, and the school got a new gym. That the vice principal and school counselor were banging in their offices. A decade later, she is the principal and they both are busted stealing from the locker of confiscated drugs that the school apparently had. On Valentine's Day to boot. She resigned before being investigated, fired. Why would the school keep the drugs, LMAO? That seems like a setup for a B comedy where a group of stoner students set up a heist to raid the school drug locker. Each year the senior French class, or the ones who could afford it, took a trip to Paris. One year, maybe like 8ish years before I got there, one of the girls on the trip snuck out of the hotel they were all staying in to meet a guy. Nobody ever saw her again. I always thought it was just some case urban legend. But lo and behold, the French teacher who was on the trip, and still teaching when I was at the school, verified it one day. Honestly, best case scenario is she was murdered that night. I shudder to think of the alternatives. I can't think of much better best case scenarios. Like maybe she just married the guy and lives in France now. My very stoic and scary social studies teacher lost her bet and came to school in a pink princess dress with a wig and makeup. Confirmed by my science teacher with photographic evidence. There was this gym teacher that would message senior girls. He would ask to meet up, hang out after graduation on social media. It was middle school, but my math teacher was rumored to be a lesbian even though she was married to the social studies teacher. Well, next year I had the same teacher, but she had a different last name and had what looked like engagement photos of her and a woman on her desk. She was the best math teacher I ever had, and TBH she seemed a lot happier the second year. Everyone in my class in 7th grade was a real jerk to our social studies teacher. She was a 30-something-year-old woman who peaked in high school and for the life of her never seemed to find love. We all thought she was desperate to find a husband. Rumor was that she'd be on dating websites during class. This was early 2000s mind you. But then one time when we had a field trip, we went to the mall food court for lunch, and instead of chaperoning the students she legit invited a date to meet her there. So we're all sitting there in the food court snickering and watching her flirt with some random guy. As an adult, I feel bad that we picked on her, but to this day, thinking about her bringing her dates to the food court is kind of funny. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.